All right, Kayla, what do we think of my fit?
Your outfit is giving 50 Shades of Beige.
Kayla's giving 22-year-old tech entrepreneur CEO whose company's so going to fail in like 2 years.
I think I'm giving like coder in mom's basement.
No, you know what this looks like? It looks like mentor-mentee.
Dad and teen. That's what it's giving right now.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Per My Last Email, the best looking podcast out there.
So true.
And the show where we give you the hot takes and tactics to navigate the ever-changing world of work life. I'm your co-host, Kyle Hagee.
And I'm Kaila Lopez.
And we have a great episode today.
Yes, we do.
For those listening and not watching, I am in, some are saying, the most beautiful beige suit of all time. And Kayla is looking like an absolute scrub.
That's true. It's true. I am looking like a scrub. And it's by design. So if you are listening, why are you wearing what you are wearing right now?
Well, our episode is called Is Professionalism Dead?
Yep.
And so I had to flex on the younger generation, wear a full suit.
So late.
I look like I'm a Goldman banker that's about to do the most morally bankrupt deal of all time and then get on a yacht after. And, you know, I kind of liked wearing this in the subway and people thinking I wasn't going to Morning Brew. I put sunglasses on the entire subway. It was fantastic.
You were like, nobody recognized me. I'm too famous.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It just feels good to feel better than people, you know?
Yeah. The moral superiority is really why we dress the way we dress.
It's super underrated. Why are you wearing what you're wearing?
Well, because we commit to the bit here at Per My Last Email. And so I am wearing what I would call comfy chic, maybe without the chic part.
Yeah.
But I've got my sneakers, which I actually do wear most days. So that's kind of a cheat.
Yep.
And some very comfy, oversized sweatpants and a Morning Brew Daily sweatshirt, which is available on shop.morningbrew.com.
Wow, what a plug. I will say you look way more comfortable than I do.
I'm chilling.
Dripped head to toe in cotton.
I am sweating, though.
Yeah, I'm sweating too. It's quite hot in here.
It's hot in here.
So again, we're talking about Is Professionalism Dead? We're going
Yeah.
to focus on attire, communication, and kind of just this word professionalism, which
Yeah.
people have a lot of strong feelings about. So maybe let's just start off, Kayla, like talk to me about the evolution of your style as you've grown in your career. And then also I'm really curious, like, because I do think there's some gender differences here. Mm-hmm. How have you felt as a woman in the workplace and your relation to what you have to wear to be perceived as professional?
That's a big question. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about throughout the entire thing. But I started, surprise, surprise, if you've listened to this before, you know that I've started my career in finance. And I started out wearing extremely professional, like business formal outfits.
Yeah.
The
Are
blazers.
these like pantsuits or?
Pantsuits, blazers. I had the like, I don't even remember what they're called now. Those like little tiny like constricting.
Oh, pencil skirts.
A pencil skirt.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I forgot.
Of course I knew. Yeah.
Of course. What you put on the suit, you get knowledge of fashion.
Yeah.
And heels every single day. And like freaking pantyhose. Like who was that? It's so crazy. And since then I've gotten every job, I've gotten more comfortable being a little bit more casual. What about you?
Well, I have some follow-up questions.
Okay.
Was the expectation in finance that you had to dress like that, or you wouldn't be perceived as competent?
I don't think there was an alternative.
Okay.
It's just like everybody wore business formal, and sometimes people would even like wear their sneakers to work and then change into their heels once they got there because they're so uncomfortable. It's like, why were we even wearing those in the first place, you know?
And how did you feel wearing that? Was it empowering? Did you feel constricted, or was it just like, I fucking have to do this, so whatever?
Yeah, it was all of those things. I did not feel empowered, although it was quite fun, again, like walking around being like, ooh, I'm perceived as important. I'm 22 and I'm wearing heels. Like, I've got somewhere to be, you know? But no, it was super constricting. And actually, when I was interning, I was like, didn't really know how to dress. And so I was wearing pencil skirts that were a little too small. And I ended up like getting physically sick at work, thinking that I was like sick, like I have a cold or something or a stomach bug.
It was just like everything was too tight.
It was because the band of my skirt was so tight, it was constricting. Every time I ate something, I would get sick. Mm-hmm. So it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, if it's making you nauseous, it's probably not
maybe
a good
that
fit.
part was a me issue because I could have like worn something that fit my body type a little bit better. But it was very constricting. I always felt uncomfortable. I always felt like I was like shifting and moving around and like I don't know. And it was expensive.
Yeah.
Like buying the clothes is expensive. Washing the clothes is expensive. You think if you're spending $80 on a silk blouse, you can just throw it in the wash. No, then you have to pay every time you want to wash it.
Yep.
So it's like a real, like, it's an operation.
Yeah, and when you're 22, it's not like you have the money to like go do all that stuff. So even if they're paying you more, it's all going to like your local dry cleaning place.
Basically, yeah.
It's very interesting. My last question.
Okay.
How long did it take you to get ready, and was that annoying?
Oh yeah, I mean, okay, as a woman, it's gonna take you a long time to get ready, probably no matter what, unless you're like, you've got, you know, a super tight getting ready routine.
Yeah.
It always took me forever.
Yeah.
And it still does take me kind of a long time when I'm working in the office, but it's just like, you got to do the makeup, you got to do the hair, you got to pick an outfit, even if it's an informal outfit. But that's something that like everyone deals with, regardless of if they're perceived as professional or not.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's way easier as a man because you really can like roll out of bed, put a hat on if you need to. Otherwise, like your hair is shorter, so it's probably more fine, and just get to the office and it's like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so you get more sleep. I feel like you feel less stressed in the morning. Like it's the advantages start in the AM.
Yeah. Even today, in my little schlubby outfit.
You probably took longer than I did to get a suit on.
So long.
Yeah. That's wild. So my evolution of style, I mean, my first job was in AmeriCorps, and we did have an outfit. Like we had a uniform, a green one that had a College Possible insignia on it.
Okay.
This like polo shirt, and then you were supposed to wear khaki pants.
Okay.
I didn't do any of that.
No.
I hated being told what to wear. And so like I was almost like doing it out of spite. I was like, I'm going to wear whatever I want. And like, I dare you to fire me because you're paying me $12K and it's volunteer work. So like, bring it on.
Did you get in trouble?
No, I didn't get in trouble. And in some like almost sick, twisted way, I was like, I'm going to be so good at my job. So like, you can't even get mad at me for wearing whatever I want because like the numbers don't lie. And so it was almost this like, I had to create a thing like a chip on my shoulder when I had no right to have one at all. And I've just always, I have never liked being told what to wear.
Yeah.
So I've always liked kind of feeling free to wear what I want to wear as long as you're performing well at work and it's not like distracting your colleagues in any way. I've always felt like that's totally fine. The one thing that I did have that my parents really didn't like was a tattoo. And it was a visible tattoo on my like inner forearm. So if I'm wearing long sleeves, you can't see it, but if I'm wearing short sleeves and I'm like turn my forearm up, you can see it. And that generation is like, if you have a tattoo, you might as well be like an outcast from society. So they were like really worried that I was gonna get this tattoo and like not be able to find a job. And my take was always like, if a job didn't hire me because I had a tattoo that was like totally appropriate, I would not want to work for them in the first place. But there's privilege to have the ability to find multiple jobs. So the tattoo was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I think we are talking about dress right now, but it also goes farther out, right? It talks about your appearance, how you're perceived by others. We'll talk about communication. But I do want to set the scene a little bit because even though it sounds like, you know, how you're perceived in our attire and our style has always been on our mind, and it probably has always been on your mind. It feels like there was a really like marked shift during COVID.
Yes.
So because we weren't in an office all the time, we were able to kind of relax our dress codes a little bit.
People couldn't see your legs.
So yeah, the pajama pants memes were going crazy. Like people walking around behind the screen in their boxers. You're like, what's going on? And I think that really shifted what the expectations are for attire in the workplace. Because it's like, wait, people can still do their jobs even when they're wearing like t-shirts and haven't brushed their hair in 3 days.
You're like in your boxers and they're like, hey, I got to grab this pen. And you're just like, I can't get up. I was not anticipating you seeing anything but my torso.
I had 2 dogs during COVID, and when they would fight and I was in like my like pajama pants in a meeting, I'd be like, I'm in such a tough situation right now because I need to break up my 2 dogs from fighting and like drawing blood, and I need to pause my video and mute myself.
Oh my gosh.
So that nobody sees my like dinky pajama pants that I'm wearing in this meeting. Oh, it was an interesting.
I remember we'd be having a really intense conversation about like a P&L, and then I'd just hear dogs barking. You'd all of a sudden go on mute, camera off. I'm like, did I say something wrong? What's going on here? But I think your point about COVID is so great. Like there was this big shock. and we all had to stay at home. And because of that, dress norms for work changed because now you're at your house. It feels like you can wear whatever you want.
Right.
Your colleagues aren't perceiving you as much. You can be a little more comfortable. And then we went back to the office, or some of us went back to the office. And some of that, I think, like, stuck. Like, the changes in your attire were sticky. And I think we've seen less formal workplaces because of that. Like, even an extreme example is, like, presidents. If you look at, like, all the, like, the G7 summits throughout time, it used to be very buttoned up tie. And now they look like me, where they wear the suit jacket, but, like, you have the top button open, there's no tie.
It's more casual.
Like, everything is getting more casual, and I think it's more approachable, but I do think that's just kind of the story throughout time. We've started very formal, very rigid. I mean, if you go back to the early 20th century, like, what people were wearing were, like, literally full suits. I don't even know if women were allowed in the workplace. So, like,
and if they were, they certainly weren't wearing pants.
And since then, like, dress has gotten more casual as society has gotten a little more progressive, a little more open, a little more understanding. Obviously, still work to do. So it's been very interesting to see that shift.
And I think when we're returning to office, I guess my question is, like, is this Gen Z returning to office and saying, I'm going to show up to the workplace as myself, even if that involves, like, crop tops or, like, crazy hair or whatever that's perceived as not necessarily as professional per, like, previous standards? Or is this just every generation has, when you're 22, you're going to wear whatever the heck you want unless you're forced otherwise?
I mean, my take, and I'm curious what your take is, I do think this is purely a generational thing. I think right now the focus is on Gen Z because they're kind of the up-and-coming generation. But I guarantee you the same articles were written about millennials. Even boomers, they were probably like, these boomers aren't wearing ties. Like, they're too crazy. Like, get them out of the office. And so I do think this is just generational change. And the youths want to have a little more style. They tend to be, like, not wanting to follow suit of what their parents were wearing. They want to buck the trend. And so I think it pushes us as a society a little more informal every single subsequent generation. I do think as you age, you probably become a little more back to formal. And that's what I think is really interesting. Like, if you poll Gen Zs right now, like, what's okay attire, and then you pulled those same people in 20 or 30 years, I bet their answers would change a little bit because I think you just get a little more, like, conservative in dress as you get older.
I agree with that.
So I have some stats from Gallup just to kind of set the scene broadly of what people are wearing now. So 7 out of 10 people say their dress is business casual or dress down that are going to the office now. 23% actually say they have a business uniform. But this might be people that work in service industries where, like, you kind of have to have that uniform. Only 3% of the U.S. workforce surveyed in this Gallup poll said they dressed business professional. So it's actually a very small minority that are dressing up in full suits or pantsuits or, like, nice blouses. And I bet that is very industry specific. It's some of the industries that are a little more buttoned up, like finance. And I think the big thing here too is also, who are your clients? If you're serving an audience that is older, is wealthier, probably tends to be a little more conservative, you probably have this, like, pressure on you to dress in a way that they perceive as competent because you don't want to lose customers. So you're kind of trapped by the audience you're serving.
I totally see that. And I do think, though, that Gen Z probably generally is bucking the trend in terms of, they're younger, they're going to show more style. But I do think that they're really like looking at what professionalism means. And they're saying, I'm going to do not that. So our producer, Kaila, actually pulled up a few TikToks and we'll look at one of them. And neither of us have seen this, so we're going to react. This is our real reaction. And we'll see if we're like, oh, we, like, love the Gen Z kids. Like, look at them, like, bucking trends. Or if we're like, this is actually not appropriate in the office.
If a guy in a suit sees a TikTok, I think we implode. So I'm a little worried right now.
Combust. Let's check it out.
This is my very last fit check as a full-time Gen Z marketing agency girly, and today is my last full day. So I'm just wearing these long shorts. I will never wear jean shorts any shorter than this. I think this is the perfect length. My Steve Madden biker boots that I love so much, a Skims tank, and then this surprise Paris cardigan. I'm obsessed with this. My D necklace is from Missouri, and these glasses are from Amazon.
I'm going to let you describe what you
Sure.
saw because I don't think I should describe two women's outfits.
Fine. So there was 2 TikToks. The first one was a woman that was wearing this like black, it looks like a structured blouse, like kind of high-necked, and a pencil skirt. Granted, the pencil skirt was probably a little short, these cute like heels. It seems like a young version of an appropriate business formal for me. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have, worn it with, if it's like the high school dress code. Like if
3-finger straps, folks.
The 3-finger straps. But that being said, I actually wasn't like shocked.
It looked kind of badass to me.
It was a great outfit.
It looked like she was about to close a deal.
Yeah, she was about to close a deal and or be Angelina Jolie and Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, great options there.
And then the second one was a little bit more of that less traditional outfit. She was wearing these like cut-off jorts or like jean shorts. And she said she would never go shorter than that. But they were pretty long. They kind of almost looked like Bermuda shorts. Some like funky like leather cowboy boots, a tank top that was cropped, and like a big fuzzy sweater.
Yeah, and the sweater was red and her glasses were red,
right.
which
That
I thought was fire.
Matchy. Yeah.
Also, she said she's a Gen Z marketing agency girly.
Yeah.
All I want to be in life is a Gen Z marketing agency girly. That sounds so fun.
The dream.
The glasses matching the top was fire.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like we can get into this. Your industry does matter.
Yeah.
And like when I saw the second woman, like that's a marketer.
Yeah.
Like I want her running my marketing. She seems creative. Like your style of what you wear also, I think, depends upon what like role you have. And you expect someone in marketing, you expect someone in sales maybe to wear different outfits.
Yeah.
I think it's probably an extension of personality.
Yeah, I agree. I do think with the second one, like Morning Brew, I think has a very relaxed culture. I do still think if I saw someone with the cutoff jorts with the little like strings hanging off, I would just take a second look. I wouldn't be like, this girl is crazy.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, oh, that's like a non-traditional, that's something I would like wear to a picnic.
Yeah.
Not at work. But I actually don't think they were as bad as I was expecting. So that's a positive. That's great.
Great work, TikTok girls.
Yeah.
We love it.
We'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show.
So I have 2 points.
Yeah.
The first is I think when we're talking about professionalism, where we're like talking about people's attire, part of me feels like weird, honestly. Like it almost crosses this line where to critique it, it feels like I shouldn't be saying what I'm saying at work. Like you are like evaluating the appearance of your coworkers. And I don't know if you feel uncomfortable with this, but like that's where I'm always like, just wear whatever you want and like I'm gonna be good with it because like I don't feel like I have the right to like tell you what to wear or even like comment on your appearance in that way. And also this idea of like professionalism has been used as like, an oppressive instrument. Yeah. And it has been racist and sexist. Like I remember when I was younger in my career, there's all this talk about what hairstyles are acceptable at work.
There still are, yeah.
And it was like, classic white hairstyles were like the professional ones. And classic like black hairstyles weren't.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, we know how we got here.
Yeah.
And like, is this really a problem about hairstyles or is it about leftover like racism just throughout the workplace? And so it's always, I think, really important to check like, where are your judgments actually coming from? Are they coming from a place of we want this to be a fun, relaxed, professional environment where people feel included? Or is it coming from some like leftover prejudice you might have and you haven't really evaluated?
Absolutely. And I think when we're talking about the perception of professionalism, it all comes down to that first word, which is perception. And it's really tough when you're in an environment that has typically been favorable to cis white men.
Right.
When you...
Hell yeah.
Good for you, buddy. When you break those norms or you're showing up more authentically as yourself in a way that doesn't align with the values of that population, it's very easy for the people in power to perceive you as less than or as less professional, less worthy of, closing a deal or getting that promotion or getting hired, when the reality is it's their personality and their intelligence that makes them quote unquote professional.
Right. And I think it's very interesting because, we like cis white males have had a ton of privilege in society.
Oh, so what? Are you sure?
We are breaking news on this podcast.
That's crazy.
We are breaking news. But just extending that privilege to like then who runs companies?
Yeah.
Who picks the HR people that are ultimately going to pick these policies? And so it's clear to me why we might have a system that feels a little more rigid than actually makes sense for a majority of people. It's because the people in charge just have a worldview that isn't maybe like totally encompassing of other perspectives. Like you're telling me how long it took you to get ready.
Yeah.
You were telling me, you had to wear pencil skirts that were making you feel sick. That's just stuff that I haven't experienced.
Yeah.
So it's like out of sight, out of mind. And so I think, again, it's just really important to be like conscientious that a dress code has to work for like all of your employees and not just one subset of them. The other thing I want to talk about is this perception. Yeah. And I think this is key because we've talked a lot about like, wear whatever you want, be an individual, like don't let the man get you down. And that could be true.
Yeah.
However, like we also live in a world where there are certain advantages or disadvantages based upon what you wear because of these perceptions that people are going to have of you. And so I think buck the trend if you want, wear whatever you want. But I think going in, I'd be lying to you if I don't think that might be a disadvantage, particularly when you're starting out at a company or when you're starting early in your career. People are going to judge you based on what you wear. And they're going to view that, again, as a heuristic, my favorite word on the podcast.
Favorite word.
As like a level of competence.
Yeah.
And so if you're wearing something that's perceived as less professional, people might perceive you as less professional, and that might hurt your career. So you just should be very careful of that. However, there's some really interesting research that these 3 scientists have done. I don't remember their names, but I promise you this is a real
research. I believe you.
And what they found is if you are perceived as competent, like maybe you have a title that's high up, people know you're a great worker, you actually can get an advantage from wearing bits of flair or really being yourself. It's like people know that you're competent and you're cool to like buck the trend, and you're actually perceived as higher value as someone that's competent and wears kind of normal clothing. So it can go both ways. I think it just depends on where you're at in your career.
I actually have 3 examples that I'd love to talk about with this, so thank you for bringing them up. First,
love it. Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg, the OG hoodie wearer in power. So basically, it was like such a big deal when Facebook first came up. Like, oh, this man is in charge of a company and he wears hoodies.
Right,
like,
I wear hoodies too.
Oh my gosh, he's bucking the trend. He's crazy. Like, he's now wearing a suit to meetings. And it was like this huge freaking deal. The second person that went even further was Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF.
Oh my God, perfect example.
His whole thing was like, I don't care about you. I'm playing video games while I'm in the meeting.
Flip-flops.
Flip-flops, hair unbrushed. Like I'm dressed like a slob. I've got like crumbs on my shirt.
Yeah.
And I don't care about you, a VC person that we're in the meeting. And so therefore you think I'm so smart.
Yes.
And I'm so crazy and just like, I've got this like weird little thing about me that makes me really good. Well, like obviously that didn't turn out great.
Yeah. My takeaway is flip-flops equal fraud.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, noted.
But just on this point about SBF, then I'll go to your third example. Again, I think it's this idea of like, young white math people are perceived as competent. So when you flip the script, you're cooler.
Yeah.
If a woman showed up in,
no, it'd be horrible.
A swimsuit and flip-flops to a meeting with a VC, they're probably already not getting funded. They're definitely not getting funded if they do that. So it is this like, if you are perceived as high status and you buck the trend, you're cooler. If you're perceived as low status and you buck the trend, they're like, this person is crazy.
Exactly. Or you have to work like that much harder because you already are at a relative disadvantage based on the reality that we live in. So the, professionalism that you can use, you can employ to your advantage to add a little bit of credibility. The third example that I'm going to give you is actually, gosh, this was like a while ago, so I don't remember the exact year, but when Obama wore the tan suit.
Oh my God. He actually,
do you remember this?
I'm stealing his fit.
It was like such a big deal. And he was the leader of the free world, and he wore a light-colored suit, and everyone lost their minds. It was like, this man is so unprofessional. Like, what does he think he's doing? Like, this is crazy. And it's another thing, like, he's literally the president of the United States at the time.
Yeah, I think he knows a thing or two about a thing or two.
God forbid he ever even, like, loosened his tie a little bit, and he would have been, and, maybe that's because the expectations of a politician in that status is higher than Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe it's because he's a man of color, or because people just like to talk shit, but I don't know.
There's a lot of factors, I think, that go into how you're going to be perceived and what you wear, how that ties in. And so just being aware of that as you enter the workforce is great advice. I think we have a game coming up, which we're calling Professional or Nah.
Professional or Nah. So I'm going to give Kyle 4 different things, and he's going to respond, are they professional or nah? Okay, ready? Shorts.
Professional.
On men?
Professional.
Okay. Interesting. I won't ask for any follow-up. Piercings and visible tattoos.
Professional, depending on what the tattoo is. I have no problem with like jewelry or earrings or piercings. I think if the tattoo is something that is like mean or like weird, like but if it, I have tattoos, like I think it's professional.
Okay, cool. Glitter.
Only if you work in marketing.
I'm just covered in body glitter. I've got that's funny. Okay, and finally, being overdressed.
Being overdressed.
Like extremely overdressed.
Yeah, I mean, it's professional. It might be a distraction and or weird, but I think it goes back to like understanding social cues. Like I'm wearing a suit at Morning Brew and I feel out of place.
And I'm wearing sweats at Morning Brew and I feel out of place. Like I feel very uncomfortable right now.
Yeah.
But I think like what I'm getting at with this last one of being overdressed is like, I think that when we talk about professionalism, what we're really talking about is like meeting the norms and the expectations of the environments that we're in.
Yep.
And so, for example, though I don't think you're dressed unprofessionally, I think you are out of place at this environment of Morning Brew.
Yep.
And like you've even mentioned, you're going to change right after we record
Literally,
this.
I have a meeting
as
at 10.
I.
I'm not wearing this.
Yeah. And so I think it's like professionalism broadly in like the entire US is defined as one thing, but that changes very drastically depending on the environment that you're in.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like, I think what makes professionalism hard is, to me, the people that understand it have like high social awareness and social intelligence. And so most people have that. So everything goes like according to plan. There's some people that don't have maybe the necessary amounts of social intelligence. And so sometimes they wear things that you're like, I'm interested in how you got to the decision to bring that into the office. But those conversations are very hard because you can't go to someone and be like, hey, your EQ is a little low today. Like, what's going on? So I think, again, it's just a really tricky thing to navigate. And that's a tough conversation to have maybe as a manager about like expectations for like your direct reports on what they should wear. It's tricky. Based on professional or not, I have some stats from the Wall Street Journal.
Great.
They polled 1,000 U.S. adults about what men could wear to the office. 55% said wearing a branded hat was fine.
Yep.
92% said jewelry is a go, but 23% said no earrings.
Wow.
On men.
Can I for a second?
Yes.
Because to me, what that says is that men that are wearing items of clothing that are perceived as more feminine is a no-go or is not professional, which to me is garbage.
Yeah.
Garbage, trash.
And it's so interesting because I think at the heart of this conversation, when we talk about professionalism at work, you can't avoid the changing norms of society.
Right.
And so we've had a lot more like freedom of expression for people to wear things that maybe the opposite gender was perceived to have worn normally. And as that gets into the workplace, you maybe have an older generation that's running companies that just isn't used to that and are like, oh no, you can't do that. And so I think it takes a lot of education for everyone to get comfortable with this new status quo. 73% said sneakers are good. 54% said sandals are a no-go.
I don't want to see any man's toes.
And we we learned
in
this
the office or otherwise.
We learned this through SBF. Sandals equal fraud. And 52% said yes to a band tee.
Okay.
So that's about a 50-50, just like wearing a casual T-shirt.
Sure, I agree with that.
Again, I think it depends on your workplace.
Yep.
Two other stats I want to show from Hive: 61% of employees said their productivity went up when they were allowed to wear whatever they wanted, and 80% found dress codes not even useful at all, which I think is pretty interesting, and I think it goes again to, if I'm running a company, my ultimate goal is for successful business outcomes. And for successful business outcomes, you could say employees should feel empowered, authentic, feel like they're included. And so I do think understanding and being okay with wearing a lot of different clothing at work is actually good for business, because if you're constricting people, if people are nauseous because they're wearing pencil skirts, you're not going to be able to focus in a meeting and deliver business outcomes. So I do think there's an argument, like a business argument, for having a little more freedom in the workplace.
Yeah, I like that. And I have 3 tactics. I'm not sure if you've got any for everyone
take
today.
it away.
Okay, so first, unfortunately, remember the environment, right? So you basically can wear whatever is like appropriate in that environment, and there's going to be a band of like what's acceptable and what's not.
Yep.
And so I think whether you like it or not, whether we like it or not, heuristics, as you say, exist. And unfortunately, like, I wish we lived in a world in which everyone could express themselves as they wanted to and were able to. But sometimes it does make sense to lean into those quote unquote professional ideals a little bit more, especially at the beginning of your career, or to understand that by bucking those trends, you will have you may be at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And just one caveat to that is you don't need to work there.
Yeah.
You know, if you have other options. So I think it's understanding what is the dress culture of a place. And if you're someone that like, I don't want to dress like that, and I think I'm going to be at a disadvantage if I show up as my authentic self, but I'm not willing to like dress how they want to dress.
Yeah.
Maybe finding fit somewhere else is important. And so I think just analyzing fit is always a good tactic.
Yeah. And then my final one is, we talked about in the LinkedIn episode how you present yourself online can sometimes act a little bit as like you're writing into existence your next step or your goals or like who you want to be. I think your dress can also do that. So you're basically like, how you dress is like manifestation. Dress for the job you want, whatever. Obviously that's been like forever.
Dad.
But I do think there's a point here, which is like you feel good when you're dressed in a way that like aligns with your values. You may feel more confident. And whether that's dressing like, you know, the Gen Z with the jorts, great. Or if that's dressing in a suit, that's great. But making sure that you're dressing in a way that aligns with your values and almost like manifests the path that you want to forward. I think that's like a really good way to get started, and hopefully that aligns with the environment that you're in.
Yeah, that was actually one of my tactics too, is like be authentic when you can. And there was a great story of a banker. I can't remember where she worked, but she would wear like black and blue colors. But she was like dressing very colorfully outside of work. And she said, F it, like I'm wearing pink blazers. And she said right away it was like a little uncomfortable, but then it actually helped her career because she felt like she was showing up with good energy. She was showing up authentically. It was kind of this icebreaker, and it allowed her to actually scale her career further. So I think that's a really good tactic. My 3 tactics for employees: observe others, which you said, like, you know, maybe take a second, see what other people are wearing in your office, and try to stay within those bands, particularly when you're early. Yeah. So you can like you can prove you're competent and prove you're a great worker, and then I think it's going to give you a little more flexibility. The second thing is to maybe like start nicer. I think this is a normal trend. People like dress up a little early in their tenure, and it gets a little more informal as they go. Again, you're a proven commodity. You've developed relationships. People know you. Add some flair. I think one of the coolest things from this research is like, if you are perceived as a really great worker, adding some flair, showing up as yourself, I think 1, people respect you more. 2, it gives permission to other people to do the exact same thing. And I think that's the workplace we all want to work in. My tactics for employers are, first, check your biases. Like really understand like what is the history of dress attire? How has this been used to oppress certain marginalized groups? And make sure you're not reinforcing those biases. The second thing is always ask, is it affecting performance? Is it a distraction to others? Is it like affecting their performance? If it's not, I just don't see what the big deal is. We're a business. We're trying to get business outcomes. If people wearing comfortable stuff helps them achieve that, that's perfect. You might have to have some conversations with people that are more client focused. It could affect business. And like, you might not like it, but if, you know, some 60-year-old guy is like wanting to invest $100 million and you show up in flip-flops, like, they might not do it, and that is going to hurt the enterprise. And then I think understanding generational differences. It's super easy to be like, let's go Gen Z, you're breaking down walls, you're wearing what you want, you're an inspiration to others. I do have some sympathy for people that grew up in a very different generation.
And they broke the norms for themselves.
Exactly. They broke the norm. Like, they feel like they broke the norms, and they are now the status quo that's like accepting. And the world continues to evolve, and it's hard to stay on top of like all of these trends. I can imagine it being hard for a 60 or a 70-year-old in an office to like see some of these new outfits and like really like understand that it's okay. And they have just a different lived experience too. So I think understanding general differences from Gen Z all the way up to the boomers is really important for everyone involved.
I think that's a fantastic way to wrap it.
Looks like we solved professionalism.
Sounds like. Is professionalism dead? Maybe.
It's not dead, but it's constantly evolving.
Love that.
And now I can get out of my suit, so let's roll these credits.
Fantastic.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Waoku.
Haley Resnick is our senior analyst of ad sales and insights.
And our chief content officer is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.